it just so happens that it was one of those months where I learned something about myself. I'm really, really competitive. I want to start by thanking my patrons. And that includes my Wizard Apprentice, my Wizard Journeyman, and all of my Wizard Master tier patrons. Thank you Chris, Nico, Cody, Sharon, Patrick, Leslie, Ryan, Jennifer, Wysitch, Twaney, Spyro, Reading Rainbow, and Mendelin. Thank you all so much. Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and as always guys, I am Andrew, and today I've got my July 2022 wrap-up here for you. But before we get into that, make sure you are liking and subscribing and hitting that bell notification so you can get regular updates for when I put out new content, because I drop 2 videos a week. And that said, guys, I should be calling this my Indie Accords Readathon wrap-up, because, of course, the month of July, I was co-captain of Team Narwhal for the Indie Accords. And we're not quite at the end of the month, but the Narwhals have been killing it. And, guys, I have read 25 books this month, because, like I said, I'm really competitive, and I wanted to rack up as much points for that readathon as I possibly could. And 25 is a lot of books to read within a single month. So I guess we've got no option but to just jump right in. Okay, so let's start talking the books that I read. I started this month with the fantastically underwhelming epic of a dead wizard and an average bard. And guys, I am going to be talking about this a little bit more in depth on my next indie showcase or spotlight. I keep forgetting the name of this thing. It's either a spotlight or a showcase. Anyway, whatever, doesn't matter. I'm going to be talking about indie books in that video. That is coming up. But basically, I wanted to listen to Kevin Kemp's narration of this because, frankly, Kevin Kemp is an absolute gem. And guys, if you're expecting satire, there is humor in the story. However, it is predominantly an epic fantasy story. So we've got Samantia and George and what have you and all of these characters. And it's a great, great read. But I went in expecting more satire because of the title, which completely makes sense by the end of the book. There's a very good special moment at the end of the book that makes that title well worth it. However, I feel like you need to go in with proper expectations. This is an epic fantasy story with humor, not a humorous story with fantasy elements. That said, I gave this one a 3 out of 5. I kind of want to read this one again in sometime in the near future with a proper expectation, and I think that would go up to a 4 out of 5. Keon Ardelin is definitely one of those authors that I want to keep my eyes on because he's going places. Because for a debut, it was absolutely fantastic. Next up, I read Mage Errant, Books 1 and Book 2. And this is kind of a, I'm not going to quite say it's Dark Academia progression, but it's definitely, it fits somewhere in the middle there. Because we do have Hugh of Emberlin, who is our main character. He's a very reserved character. He's got a lot of insecurities. He's kind of shy. His magic doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Neither does his friends. And they kind of get this mentor who helps them get past these roadblocks. And it's a lot of fun getting to kind of see Hugh come out of his shell and stuff like that. As of book 2, he's still working his way out of that shell. I've been told by like books 3, 4, and 5, Hugh is, a powerhouse. So it is a series that I am planning on continuing. But I gave, books 1 and 2, I think 4 stars each. I will also be talking about these later in an indie showcase. And then I also read Rance D. Denton's His Ragged Company. And guys, this is a fantasy western, and I absolutely love this one. Elias Faust is the sheriff or marshal, I guess you could say, of Black Peak in Texas, which means this takes place in our world. And guys, what Elias goes through, it's almost an episodic story where it starts out very western with just a hint of fantasy. And then the sprinkling of the fantasy just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper until it just crashes over you like a tsunami wave. I loved this book. I listened to this one on audio, but the physical book is absolutely astounding. There's the back, there's the spine, and there's the cover. I initially bought this because I thought it was a beautiful, beautiful book. And then I listened to the audio, and the narrator is amazing, and I wish I could remember his name off the top of my head, but guys, look at this gorgeous book and a fantastic fantasy western. I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5. I want to read this one again because the fantasy elements, when they crash in, it just creates a whole bunch of confusion. So, like, not even the main character knows what's going on. Like, he's a gunslinger. Like, he just shoots things and marshals. So he doesn't know what magic is. And that kind of, because we're getting it from his POV, it kind of hinders the reader from understanding what the magic is doing. And so I want to give this one another go and try this one and see if I can't figure out a little bit more of that magic again. I then read The Warrior by Stephen Aryan. This is the second and final book in the Quest for Heroes duology, sequel to The Coward. And I don't want to talk too much about this, but basically, this follows Kel's relationship with his family and basically the events that happen after The Coward. This follows promises that he is trying to fulfill and keep that he made in The Coward. I give this one a 4 out of 5. I didn't quite enjoy this one as much as The Coward because I felt like it focused more in on those relationships that Kel has developed and the situations that he's finding himself in. We're also kind of splitting POVs at this point. And while we get a lot of resolution, there's a fine line to be made in answering too many questions and answering not enough questions. And I feel like there was just a couple more mysteries I wanted to explore in the Five Kingdoms. That kind of left me going, but wait, I wanted just a little bit more. So this one's a 4 out of 5. I've already got my special editions ordered from the Broken Binding. Guys, I cannot wait for those. They are beautiful. And again, Stephen Aryan is a powerhouse, and I cannot wait to explore more of his work. All right, next up, I read, of course, Volume 2 of Vinland Saga. Now, guys, one quick thing on Vinland Saga is I think I'm just going to switch to getting these from my library. I don't feel like spending $20 for something that's going to take me 3 hours to read. Volumes 1 and 2, 3 hours a piece. And that's just not worth $20 to me. They look good on the shelf, but they're very, very quick reads. That said, historical Viking fiction, and it's awesome. It's action-packed. It's bloody. It's graphic. It's machismo. It's, Vinland Saga. So, it's good. I'm hoping to read the third one in August, and then have a discussion. I think it's after the third or fourth one that the first arc is done, and then have a discussion with Mazza from Mazza Booktuber. Alright, next up, I read Dread God by Will White. And guys, this isn't my favorite Cradle book, but it's not my least favorite Cradle book. So, it's getting a bit of a mixed reception. A lot of my friends are like, I'm missing a specific character that has been separated from the group back in Reaper. And it just kind of is what it is. But, we still have that character. It's just kind of a different dynamic. And I feel like there's a little bit of longing that is going on. That is okay to miss favorite characters interacting with the main group. We've got one book left. I'm sure we're going to see this all tie together beautifully. Speaking of Will White, I read the entire Traveler's Gate trilogy. This was, I believe, his debut trilogy was Traveler's Gate. And it was good. It wasn't as, addicting to me as Cradle was. And you can see a lot of the seeds of what became Cradle. There's a lot of character similarities and stuff like that, but the characters are just a little less dynamic. They're a little more one-dimensional, and they're not quite well-rounded. Like, we've got a crazy guy, we've got a loyal guy, we've got the deceitful lady, we've got the I'm better than everybody kind of. They're kind of tropey, and they're very much just a single characteristic. That said, great combat, fantastic magic system, fairly entertaining. The whole trilogy was a 4-star read, or I should say a 4-star listen, because I listened to these because they were recently re-narrated by Travis Baldry, and of course Travis Baldry continues to delight. Next up, I then read Gunmetal Gods. This one's been getting a bit of attention here on BookTube lately. This was one of the host favorite picks, and I felt kind of flat on it. This one was a 3 out of 5 read for me. Unfortunately, like, I was unaware that this was the Flintlock fantasy. I do enjoy Flintlock fantasy. However, there was just something off here. There's also some trigger warnings that I didn't see a lot of people talking about that, like, when it hits you, you're just like, oh, I wasn't prepared for that in this book. It's just kind of gross. There's a little bit there's an incestuous implied relationship here within the story about halfway through, and I wasn't really here for that. If I had known about it, I probably would not have picked up this book. That was very much a make or break scene for me. After that scene, I was just kind of gross. It's not prevalent throughout the story. However, I wish I had known it was there. I probably will not be continuing on with Conqueror's Blood, but I do want to read Lightblade from Zamil Akhtar. I then read The Game of War by Glenn Dahlgren. And this is one that I gave another 3 stars to. This is a coming-of-age, sort of YA fantasy. Basically, my problem with this book was structurally. It's because we hit a massive climax halfway through the book, and then we just crash, and then have to do the whole climb again for another 2 parts. I was already emotionally exhausted and invested in the book, and I got that payoff halfway through the book, and then, by that time I was already emotionally spent. I was already invested in the main characters, and then it just makes you do it all over again, and that's not really a structure for a book that I vibe with. However, it had fantastic characters, fantastic magic, great world building. I overall enjoyed it. It was just kind of structurally not to my taste. That said, we then read more books here because I have a problem. And frankly, this is one of my favorite reads of the month. Now, I would love to have gotten a video review for this out sooner, but it's going to come out in September. And guys, this is one of my favorite reads of the year so far, and that is Wistful Ascending by J.C.M. Byrne. And I love this cover. Initially, I was like, oh, this cover is kind of tacky. And then as I was reading this book, I just fell more and more in love with the cover, to the point where I used it for the prompt of, read a book for a beautiful cover. So I chose this one. And this follows Rowan. Rowan is a alien-human hybrid, and because he is this specific type of hybrid, he gets superpowers. Back on Earth, and all of this takes place, I should mention, in a space opera setting at a space station. He is a retired military veteran / retired superhero. He does have superpowers, but this is feels more like a space opera where the guy just doesn't need a mech suit. He just has all the abilities. I absolutely love this. This is great found family, great dynamic. Rowan, basically, his entire race is a bunch of rage monsters, and he's just trying to be better. There's great humor in this, and frankly, Rowan is an awesome character. I do have Return of the Griffin, which is the follow-up to this, and I cannot wait to read it. Next up, we've got books 2, 3, and 4 of Babaverus. That's For We Are Many, All These Worlds, and Heaven's River of the Babaverus. Overall, Babaverus continues to be a 4-star experience here for me. I don't know, that book 4, so my problem is book 4 is this thick. And it doesn't match, so you've already angered the collector in me. But books 1, 2, and 3 feel like one story that has just been packaged and sold to the reader as 3 separate books. The endings are not super strong, they just feel like cliffhangers at the end of a chapter, or at the end of a part of a single book. So, as a whole unit, I would probably give book, For We Are Many, We Are Legion, For We Are Many, and All These Worlds. I would consider that one book, and that would probably be a 4.5 experience. However, individually, 4-star reads. All of these endings are not super satisfying. They just kind of end and happen. And then when we get to Heaven's River, which feels like a sequel to the first one, we don't get a whole lot of new ideas here. We just do a lot of the same thing over again. Next up, we have got Stephen King's The Song of Susanna. And guys, this is where I DNF'd The Dark Tower last time, and I was expecting to not enjoy this. And if you want something that you're not expecting, how about this? A plug for the Wizardly Duo Discord. You can check the description down below for the link to the Wizardly Duo Discord, where we have tons of great discussion. Back to Song of Susanna, though. Song of Susanna, I was fully expecting not to like this story. And guys, blown away. I gave this 5 stars, because this is where I DNF'd the Dark Tower last time, and I don't remember why. Maybe I was just a teenager, and I went, ooh, squirrel, and went that way. I vaguely remembered a scene that didn't appear in this book, so I don't know what I'm remembering. However, there are certain people who don't like this because it kind of breaks the fourth wall a little bit. Would that be considered breaking the fourth wall? Anyway, a thing happens in here that is very unique to this story, and I'm kind of here for it. It didn't bother me. I actually really enjoyed that aspect of Song of Susanna. I've got one more book left. Well, I've got technically 2 more books left in the Dark Tower, because I'm going to also read Insomnia, because it's got a lot of, explains like Ka and stuff like that, or so I've been told. Guys, I love Song of Susanna. It's not my favorite Dark Tower book, but I would say it's easily a top 3 for me, up there with Drawing of the Three and The Wastelands. So yes, I love this one. I also liked Wolves of the Call, so we're in good form here lately with Dark Tower books. Alright, and then I also started a new series, which I've read the first 2 books here. And this is a lit RPG game lit style of story that I absolutely loved, and that is Dungeon Crawler Carl. And I think the book 2 is called Carl's Doomsday Scenario. I'm hoping to pick up book 3 here soon, because these are just fun and delightful reads that have just shocking moments in them. But basically, if you like the Borderlands video games, this series is for you, because the achievement system in this series is basically just claptrap from those books. But Carl is this regular guy who just broke up with his girlfriend, and his ex's cat jumps out the window. Princess Donut. And she jumps out the window. He jumps out to go get her because he wants to keep the cat as part of the breakup, just because I guess he's feeling a bit petty. And the world comes to an end. Basically, aliens have invaded. They have been here for decades, and they kill 90% of the world's population, if not more. And then basically underneath the Earth's crust has been turned into a dungeon video game where crawlers descend into the depths of the Earth, and they battle for survival, and they get HUDs, heads-up displays, and you get achievement systems, and there's boss battles, there's city bosses, neighborhood bosses. It's a lot of fun. There's goblins. There's just one of the greatest lines of all time is, "Did we just start a meth war between the goblins and the llamas?" Is basically a line straight out of this book. It's hilarious. It's batty. It's wild. It's a lot of fun. So I read those 2, and basically as the books progress, it's just as he gets deeper and deeper into the dungeon. It's a lot of fun. I then read A Drowned Kingdom by P.L. Stewart. And guys, this is fantastic. This is normally, now you'll notice I'm wearing the hat because, P.L. was kind enough to send me a hat. I rarely take this hat off. This is awesome. So this is basically an Atlantis tale. But basically, this is a tale of the second prince of Atlantis. I believe is Othrin, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this is not the typical style of story that I would love. And yet, we get everything pretty much from Othrin's perspective. This is politically charged. I loved it. I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5. It's absolutely fantastic. Just the politics of Atlantis. And of course, if you know the Atlantean tale, that happens here as well. We end up with Othrin, the surviving ruling member of the court of Atlantis. We get a lot of strife within the Atlantean court, and then we kind of get a fight for survival and a right to exist in the second half of the story. And it's just fantastic. I cannot wait to get to the second book, because I've heard that it shifts from a political to more battle focus, and I am here for it. I am here for it, guys. I loved A Drowned Kingdom. This is the way I like politics to be presented to me within a fantasy story. It's just this whole sort of maneuvering and kind of just capitulating and then like scheming. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I mentioned Kevin Kemp earlier. Well, the audiobook for A Touch of Light came out. Now, I'm not going to tell you a whole lot about this. I've done a dedicated book review. However, Kevin Kemp did the audiobook for this. And if you remember at the beginning of the video, he also did the audio for Fantastically Underwhelming Epic of a Dead Wizard and an Average Bard. Well, we did an audio video or launch party that I will link up in the cards if you want to check that out. It's full of shenanigans, a lot of fun, joined by a just great group of people. We've got Alan, we've got RJ. It's just, that entire live show was sucking diesel. And I absolutely love this. It was a great audio experience. It's a great physical read. Please make sure you're picking this one up. And of course, I'll have my Touch of Light video review linked in the description down below. I also read Philip C. Quantrell's Empire of Dirt. And this is coffee stained and it makes me sad. This is one where I think the sequel was not as good as the first one. This I gave a 3 out of 5. Just a lot of the same. There's still, we kind of expand the group. We get more parties. And I just want more Asha. Like, whenever Asha's not on the page, I'm really not that interested. I'm still trying to figure out why Gideon's a part of the story. We've got the Elf Queen, who is consistently enslaved. And because she's enslaved, she is sexually assaulted every single night. I didn't need to read that. So there are some good moments in this, and there's some great characters. We meet more Rangers, and I love that group of Rangers. However, I'm going to keep reading the series, but I thought that the series was going to continue to get better. So far, it has gotten worse. So I'm going to give it one more book of the Echo Saga before I render my final verdict. I then read by G.M. White, The Swordsman's Intent and The Swordsman's Lament. And this follows Blesco, the king's champion. He is a duelist. He upholds the will of the king. And this was just fantastic. It is a historical fiction set in a fictional setting. It's listed as historical fantasy. However, I don't see any aspects really here of fantasy other than the fact that there's like a one-off line of like, hey, that shaman, if he wasn't drunk, could probably do something. But mostly this is just a historical fiction setting, which is fine because this story is awesome. I thought I knew what was happening in Swordsman's Lament. Like, it's kind of almost a bait and switch type of deal where you're like, oh, this guy's clearly the lead villain. Is he? Is he the lead villain? Is it going the way you think it's going to go? And then the novella, Swordsman's Intent, just comes back and kind of fills out the backstory of what we learn in Swordsman's Lament. So I would say read Lament first and then read Intent, because it kind of Intent kind of spoils a little bit of what's upcoming in Lament. But it's a fantastic reading experience. I then read The Restaurant at the End of the Universe by Douglas Adams. This is the second Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book. And guys, this is where stuff got weird. It was a very enjoyable reading experience. I actually did the audiobook, which was narrated by Martin Freeman, who plays Arthur Dent in the movie that was like, I think that was like 2004. I don't know, it was a while ago. I love that movie though. And it's great to hear him kind of continue to do his Arthur Dent and Zaphod Beeblebrox and everything like that. The Heart of Gold, and learning what I thought was the restaurant at the end of the universe and what it actually was. I was completely wrong. We get a little bit more Martin in here. It's just zany. It's out there. It's satirical. And I gave it a 3 out of 5 because it was very hard to follow along at times because it just kind of jumps all over the place with like characters jumping in time, characters teleporting in location. We split the group multiple times. Like, there'll be a teleport, you'll get this group for, 30, 40 pages, and then all of a sudden, then we get what's going on with this group. And it's just like, wait a minute, how did we split the party? I don't remember. And so it's just kind of all over the place, but it was very funny and very enjoyable. There was a bovine creature at the end of the universe. They're like sentient, and they're like, what part of my body would you like to eat? And Martin is just like, or no, Arthur, not Martin. Arthur is just like, what? He's like, I'm a sentient creature who has chosen to be a steak for you. Like, what cut of steak would you like? Shoulder? I'm on a specific diet. The rump is pretty good, and it's just like, what is going on? It's fun. All right, so that's everything that I read. What I'm currently reading is Bonds of Chaos. I got the e-arc. Zach Argyle decided to put it out early. This is the third Threadlight book. I have been waiting for this. This is one of my most anticipated books of the year, and I am excited to just jump into that. I dropped everything. That is getting read immediately. I'm also hoping to read The Fall of Kings, which is the third David Gemmell book. It's the final book in the Troy trilogy, and it's also the final book that he wrote. He actually died in the middle of writing this story, and his wife finished it for him. I've heard it's really good, and I cannot wait. I'm also then hoping to get to The Hellborn King by Christopher Brenning. And if I can get through all of that, I will have read 28 books in the month of July. Guys, I pushed really hard this month. I went way too hard. Let me know in the comments down below, if you're even still here, how your July reads went. Did you participate in the Indie Accords? Let me know some great indie recommendations that you think I would enjoy. Please, let's just have a big old party in that comment section. And as always, guys, till next time, peace out, stay magical, bye. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons.